Hey, what's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and have I got a brand new series for you. Welcome to part 1 of What If Midoriya Was an All-for-One Fan. Please, sit back and relax, because you're in for a sweet and sour treat. With that little intro out of the way, let's get this story rolling, shall we? The rumbling explosions, the burns, the loud ringing in his ears. These were the sounds that plagued Izuku Midoriya. And why? Because of his fascination with villains, and what society had deemed as villain quirks. At least when fall and winter came, he had some respite from Bakugo's pathetic rants about being the next #1 hero due to the cold weakening his quirk a little. Yet, he was truly at his worst during the summers. The hot sun irritated Bakugo and made him sweat more, meaning the egocentric hero would come seeking his favorite punching bag. Tch! Well, if it isn't the villain fanboy Deku! I bet you wish you could be a villain, but you're too scared of the pros and me to even try! You can't even fight back with your quirk! Now, you know the drill, Deku! Get ready for your beatings, so I can get strong enough to fight the strongest person out there, All Might! Bakugo snarled and shouted like a rabid dog, exuding the air of someone with a superiority complex. Strongest? Clueless as ever. You know, Bakugo, it pays to watch the villain world rather than your fame-obsessed hero one. I'd tell you who I know for a fact is stronger than that muscle-bound symbol of peace, but I find it funnier leaving you clueless. Midoriya said openly, chuckling at the explosive teen. He watched as Bakugo's face contorted with rage and his hands crackled with explosions. But this time, Midoriya just stood smiling, hands behind his back. Bakugo took a step back before backing off, glaring at Midoriya. He recognized that look all too well. Although he'd never admit it, that look haunted him when he was 4 and witnessed Midoriya unleash his quirk for the first time. The sounds of the ground cracking, the shattering of bones, and the pained howls of a young boy of 4. Midoriya laughed madly as he began testing the limits of his newly manifested quirk, and what better way to do so than to test it on one of Bakugo's weak friends as an example for those hero wannabes to back off. He lifted one of his lackeys into the air and smashed him repeatedly into the ground. Then, a vicious grin grew wider across Midoriya's face, as he used his quirk to grab the poor boy by their wings. Then what followed was the screams and splattering of blood, while Midoriya watched, pleased as he had torn the child's right wing off. Yes, tremble! Remember your weaknesses in the face of Izuku Midoriya, you pathetic little hero wannabes! Eventually, the parents of the 4 children surrounded Midoriya, who snarled at them, his eyes burning a bright green as all but his mother were forced to their knees by his quirk, pushing them down. Kneel! He roared before a dart shot into his neck, causing Midoriya to stumble to the ground, eyes growing heavy. The last thing he saw was a damned pro, Edge Shot. From that fateful day, everyone in the area knew of the boy who had developed a quirk that gave him near unlimited telekinetic power. Midoriya was forced to wear quirk-canceling bracelets and speak with a psychiatrist every day. Well, until a week ago. Midoriya had received the bill of perfect mental health, meaning no more quirk cancellation bracelets. After all, how would he attend a hero school? How delusional and gullible could they get? What's the matter, Bakugo? Afraid of something? Snap! Midoriya smiled wider as the explosive teen fell, cradling his arms, his fingers broken. Snap! Bakugo howled in pain as his fingers snapped back into place. Let this be a reminder, Katsuki. Don't mess with me again, or I'll break your bones like twigs with just a glance. Oh, and you'd best keep your mouth shut, too. Wouldn't want people thinking that useless Deku brought the mighty Bakugo to his knees in tears. Midoriya laughed, waving as he walked to class, leaving a shocked and defeated Bakugo in his dust. Heh! Looks like he finally stood up to you. Don't worry, we won't say anything. it's far more satisfying seeing you forced to take your defeat in silence. A passing Monoma said, as he was followed by a grinning Kamakiri, who caught up to Midoriya, breaking into laughter and chatting as they got further away from the weakened teen, who was boiling with rage. Soon came the final day at Aldera Junior High. Midoriya sat writing in his notebook, not paying attention to class since he was leagues ahead of most everyone there. He wrote in detail about the villain he had observed fighting Kamui Woods and Mountain Lady earlier that day. The classroom was nothing but white noise until the barking of a mutt broke it. "Hey, Teach, don't lump me with these extras!" Bakugo scoffed triumphantly, using an explosion to garner attention as he stood on his desk and chair, a smug grin across his face. "You got something to say, Firecracker?" Kamakiri responded, pointing his blade quirk in his direction, with a scowl matching the one current sported by Bakugo. "You're damn right I do, Bug Boy! I'm saying I'm gonna emerge from UA as the next #1, and I'll squash you if you get in the way, like I did some ants this morning. Or was that your family?" Monoma soon stood up beside his friend, with a scowl, about to go off on a rant, until Midoriya spoke up. "Shut your goddamn mouth, Bakugo, before I shut it for you! Permanently! Now sit the hell down like a good mutt!" Midoriya shouted, not looking up or stopping from writing. But what most, except Monoma and Bakugo, failed to notice was how Bakugo's pen floated up and stabbed into his desk as Midoriya shouted. Granted, they shut up, and soon the teacher let out a yell. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but Midoriya, detention after class!" Midoriya gave a nod and kept writing, already tuning him out. Barely paying any attention during his detention, Midoriya just sat studying educational materials a year ahead of the class. It was later than usual for Midoriya to be out, so he decided to take a shortcut through an alleyway, his head buried in his notebook marked V1, letting a little laugh escape him as he reread the page he made about Endeavor as a joke when he was bored, given how villainous he acts for someone meant to be the #2 hero. Quick as a flash, something massive and slimy slammed into him. "Sorry, meatbag, nothing personal, but I need a suit to hide in, and you're my only option since I ain't fighting him. Now quit struggling." The sludge villain demanded as both he and Midoriya crashed into the walls and floor, caused by Midoriya trying to get him off so he could use his quirk. Midoriya let out a muffled howl in pain as he cut across his hand accidentally on a piece of glass, causing blood to drip onto the floor from his wound. "Now look what you did, kid! You cut my new body's hand with your stupid strong—" Midoriya collapsed to the ground like a sack of bricks and started to black out as the sludge villain was now decorating the walls and floor of the alleyway. Hearing only the villain's last words and a resounding shout of someone who Midoriya's mind instantly found more annoying than Katsuki Bakugo, and that assumption just from hearing their voice. "Smash!" Midoriya's mind just managed to give out one thought. Why him? This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Staying safe online is an ever-growing difficulty, and hackers could exploit you at any point. NordVPN allows you to change your IP address, making you harder to track, securing your privacy. In addition to providing you with safe passage through the internet, you can also expand the reach of your favorite streaming services. Are you tired of going through 2, 3, or even 4 streaming services to watch your favorite anime? Well, with NordVPN, you can change your country and be able to binge shows like My Hero Academia, Naruto, and many others on your favorite streaming service with just a press of a button. Check out the link in the description to get 72% off when buying for 2 years at $3.29 a month. This deal is for a limited time. And thank you again to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Midoriya soon awoke to an empty alley. No more villain. God, his head hurt. Wait, Smash? Midoriya glanced to his side and a tremendous scowl formed. His notebook must have landed on an open pair of pages, and that giant blonde idiot had defiled his villain notebook with his gaudy signature. No, this wasn't any notebook he had defiled. It was his idol's. The notebook with a hidden page on the greatest villain to walk Japan. All for one. Midoriya felt the sting of his bleeding hand and scoffed, wiping his blood across All Might's signature, Then Midoriya checked if the fool had ruined any of the other pages or found his idol's page. As the young man did this, a slim figure watched with interest, his yellow eyes widening at the details of every villain written down from quirk to names and aliases, even weaknesses and methods to improve. But this figure could no longer contain his curiosity as he saw it. The hidden page tucked away behind a false inner cover. The name of his master met his gaze, and he approached the furious green-haired teen who was smearing more blood over the name of All Might. Midoriya's eyes heard the sound of the man's approach, and quickly he shut the book and tried to slam a dumpster into the figure who was dressed in a bartender's attire and metal collar. But the figure warped it away, hearing its crash in the distance. Midoriya tried using his quirk to get a grasp on the man, but nothing happened. Then he used his telekinesis at the figure's metal collar, pulling him in. "Who are you?" Midoriya snapped at the figure, seemingly made of smoke or shadows. "Release me, and I shall explain. I am no threat, just a possible ally." The mist spoke ominously. Slowly, Midoriya released his hold, but still glared daggers at the figure. "Speak then, before I shatter that collar of yours. That's what's holding you together, I presume." Midoriya grinned, keeping his narrowed glare. "I am Kurogiri, and it would seem you are interested in villains, including my master, whom you seem to idolize, if that hidden page was anything to go by." Midoriya stood. His eyes glowed as Kurogiri felt his collar experiencing a slow increase of pressure, then a release as Midoriya's eyes widened. You mean you serve All for One?" Kurogiri nodded. This was amazing! A fellow follower! Midoriya kept a calm and serious tone, while inside he was celebrating as if it were Christmas, New Year's Day, and his birthday all in one. "May I take this notebook to my master, young one? I believe he will be impressed." Midoriya meditated on Kurogiri's request, and nodded, offering the book, with understandable caution given his last experience with a villain. "I have one condition. Tomorrow, I will wait here if he does approve of what I am about to request. I wish to meet with your master. Obviously not in person. I assume he likes his privacy and only meets face-to-face with his most trusted followers?" Kurogiri stood in silence as he took the notebook. Then he broke the silence between the two. "We have a deal, young man. And well deduced, it seems you are well versed in the ways of greater villains such as my master." Midoriya smiled at Kurogiri, giving a respectful bow, with a smile. "Thank you, Kurogiri. And to sweeten our deal, I'll be even waiting here tomorrow with my other notebooks, some on pros and how best to exploit the weaknesses, both physically and mentally." With that concluded, Kurogiri warped away as Midoriya walked off home to get a lecture from his mother, then an apology, followed by Inko's famous amount of waterworks while crying after he explained a sludge villain attacked him. But he was saved by a pro, in his words, not wanting to even let that symbol's name to grace his lips in his home. Elsewhere, Kurogiri gently placed the notebook in front of his master, One for All, who was curious at this sudden item presented to him, and all he received was a gesture from Kurogiri to read it slowly. The man's look of confusion grew into a smile of malice that would put Midoriya's to shame. Kurogiri asked his master to wait before turning from a page on a villain named Chronostasis, and to return to the first page, which at a glance seemed to be a harmless page noting the owner's name, Izuku Midoriya. Kurogiri then exposed the false cover his master had overlooked, as he didn't use his quirks on this book, seeing no need, but the fact that there was a page on him interested and concerned him. All for One turned to Kurogiri.
"Who is this Midoriya?"
he calmly asked his mist-covered subordinate. Kurogiri reached over and turned to the pages covered in blood, with All Might upon it penned by the hand his master swore to destroy. "Someone with a deep hatred for heroes, and especially All Might. Likely because of his idol's rivalry with him. He has more books like this and wishes to meet and is willing to bring them. All he awaits is your approval. One for All leaned back in his chair, looking at the blood-smeared signature, and laughed.
A new follower, and one with such a tactical mind. He has more than just approval. He may also have a potential offer of a future with us. Fetch me the good doctor. He needs to see this quirk analysis for himself. I shall inform young Tamura about our guest tomorrow. Then you can tell us all about this boy.
Kurogiri bowed and left to retrieve the doctor All for One had requested. The next day, Midoriya left for the meeting point with a backpack over his shoulder, donning a black hoodie. Upon arrival, he found Kurogiri waiting with a younger man with shaggy white hair. But as the saying goes, pot kettle. The younger male seemed about several years older than Midoriya, but definitely younger than Kurogiri.
Is that him, Kurogiri?
The shaggy male whined as he glanced at Midoriya. Indeed, young master. That is the boy who shares your hate. Kurogiri opened a warp gate for the trio. Midoriya would be lying if he wasn't nervous. Sure, these two seemed like they could be bested by him, but All for One was on an entirely different level. Plus, he was going to meet his idol, the great All for One. The three emerged into a bar that was fairly well furnished with a television screen mounted on one wall.
Master will join us soon. So, you're Midoriya, huh? You don't look like much. Look like a plain old NPC. Still, I read that book and I have to admit, it's not bad work. You definitely know your stuff.
Midoriya nodded, offering a handshake, but the shaggy male stared at his hand.
Sorry, not much for handshakes, unless you want to be a pile of dust.
Midoriya nodded again, putting his hand down. A bit dejected, but ultimately, he figured it out. I see. So that's your quirk then, huh? You disintegrate what you touch. Impressive. The man smiled, showing off his cracked lips, and laughed a bit.
Wow, that was quick. You didn't even need to see it in action. Just use a hint to figure it out. Oh, and call me Shigaraki. I was a little confused about the Endeavor page in a villain book, but when I read it... You got a dark sense of humor, Midoriya. Haven't had a good laugh at a hero like that in ages.
Midoriya smiled at Shigaraki, enjoying the fact that someone finally got it. As Midoriya handed the bag full of notebooks to Kurogiri, who proceeded to warp away, suddenly the television buzzed to life with audio only.
Ah, Midoriya, I presume. Kurogiri spoke highly of you and your quirk, not to mention your hate of All Might. All of us gave your notebook a good read, and for someone of your age, your ability with analysis is impressive. You even managed to impress the good doctor, who is currently reading over your other notebooks as we speak.
Midoriya bowed over and over. Thank you, sir. I aim to please. The young teen stammered as his idol of villainy talked. He was talking to him. All for One was actually talking to Midoriya.
No need to bow, Midoriya. I must give you credit. You seem to have collected a large amount of information on myself, villains, and heroes, despite your age. I did some digging into your background to be sure we could trust you. Quite the brutal history you have.
Midoriya shrugged at this, unsure if he should speak his mind. But eventually, he plucked up the courage and spoke. He deserved what he got. I only regret not tearing his other wing off. A distant clapping and sounds of wonder could be heard from the monitor.
Seems the good doctor is enjoying your work. Now, I have an offer for you to join us. But first, a test to be sure you can be one of us. Kurogiri, administer the test.
Midoriya was warped into a cold, lifeless steel room. He was flanked by an elevator and a massive metal gate to his front. The group all watched Midoriya's movements through their respective monitors, as slowly the metal gate opened before him. From it emerged a hideous creature with an exposed brain, its eyes showing no intelligence.
Midoriya, this is Nomu. It's the first of many. The good doctor wanted to test you against our strongest, but that Nomu is reserved for someone else to fight. Midoriya, show us what you can do. Nomu, kill.
All for One spoke with a serious tone, ordering the two to fight to the death. Midoriya guessed you don't just walk away from a meeting like this as if nothing happened, so he was getting tested whether he liked it or not. Midoriya emerged from a warp gate, bloody. Not a drop of it was his. He looked up at Shigaraki with a grin of delight that hadn't appeared on his face since he was 4.
Welcome to the league, kid.
Shigaraki said, giving an equally satisfied grin that could chill almost any pro to their core. With that, the villain, Tact to Kill, was born. And that's our video for today, so thank you all for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. Before we go, there's a little bit of housekeeping I want to go over with you. First, We the Celestials has many other incredible content and projects that our team creates for your viewing pleasures. Please check out the links in the description below for all that. Second, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details are also in the description. Give the writer and the editor some love. They do a lot of work here. And that's it for today's video, so thank you once again for sticking around and have an amazing day. And, despite this video being a little bit darker, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome. This has been Tim. Mustache out.